welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. Happy Monday. Yes, I've already had a call from the insurance company. They're ready to resolve this thing. I know. Yeah, I got into a car accident back in August, and I had to fire the lawyer because he wasn't doing shit. I don't like lawyers. That's why I stopped being a lawyer, because I hated lawyers. And I just, I didn't like, I didn't like, I don't know, I didn't like being a lawyer. I really didn't. I mean, it was okay, but it is definitely, even though there's so many female lawyers out there, it's still a man's world. That industry, still a man's world. Good old boys. Good old boys. All right, so let's start with Kowalski. Maya Kowalski and her family versus Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital. Okay, the judge this morning has sent the jury to lunch already. It's very early. He said, come back at noon. And so they're arguing over some evidentiary stuff again. Probably jury instructions. They're trying to get this case to the jury by tomorrow so they can start deliberations. 30 days, day 30 of that trial. So that we're in week number 6, 7. I don't do math. All right, we'll deal with that tomorrow. But today, they are doing the closing arguments in the state of Florida versus Charles Adelson case. So I want to talk to you today about the cross-examination of Charlie Adelson because it was fascinating. It's a good watch. It really is. It's about 2.5 hours long. Maya. Maya's not a lawyer. I think I need more coffee. Georgia Kappelman, the assistant state attorney, is doing the closings. It's interesting because she has the other woman with her, same woman that tried the case with her against Catherine McManaway last year, or earlier this year. Was it this year or last year? It's last year. Anyway, she did the openings and then pretty much nothing else. The rest is all Georgia Kappelman. But Georgia has been on this case since day one. Well, we're talking years and years of this woman's life have been spent on this case, like 6, 7. It happened in 2014. So, and like I said, she's been on it since day one. So, what is that, 6, 9 years? So, she knows this case backwards, forwards, sideways, so she's doing the closings. But she also did the cross examination of Charlie Adelson on Thursday or Friday? Friday morning. So, did you have a good weekend? I did. Except for yesterday was so weird. I didn't have any microphone and couldn't do my live. I didn't even deal with it. I haven't sorted that out. I messed with it for about 45 minutes and then I thought, well, I'm just taking the day off. I didn't know if it was me or if it was StreamYard. I don't know. So, and there's other ways to go live, and I tried the other ways, and my microphone just was not having it. This is the microphone I use for my lives, and we may have to break up. I don't know. We're in that stage where we're circling. Do we want to stay together or not? I don't know. I'm still on the fence, but I'm considering leaving it. Anyway, let's go back to the Charles Adelson case. Oh, but first, I'm sorry. My cats knocked over some stuff last night, so I got to do some organization. Oh, do y'all want to see what I did do yesterday? My sister went grocery shopping. Here's what I worked on. Look, now it's on the back. I've got 12 pieces of that together. This is my Grafgan that I've been working on all year, and so these are 12 of the squares, and it looks like it's covering the bed quite nicely. And it was originally supposed to be a 12 panel blanket, but I decided to do extra ones along the way. And I still haven't done November, December, and the birthday one. So I've still got 3 more to do. And then there's 2 panels that didn't even make it to the blanket, both the Halloween panels. So what I think I'm going to do is make another smaller blanket. just for, maybe the living room or something to put over my lap. But doesn't it look incredible on the bed? The animals think I did that for them. Yeah, they think it's their blanket. I've got news for you. No. Mm-mm. As we speak, the cats are in there napping on the Afghan. Nothing is sacred in this house. Then my sister went grocery shopping and someone stole her phone. I think she doesn't tell me, but I'm pretty sure she's using one of those little motorized things. And she had her phone in her purse, and she reached to get a thing of water, and her phone got taken. So, yes, we're just going to take yesterday and just start over today. We're going to have a good week. All right, let's talk about Charles Adelson. Now, the cross examination of his cross examination was fascinating. This guy has an answer for everything. He has memorized every single tape, wiretap, every piece of evidence. He knows it. I'm going to say it again, backwards, forwards, sideways. So he had an answer for every single thing, and a bit of a smart ass, I might add. So he is on trial for the death of Dan Markel, the murder of Dan Markel, who was an FSU law professor, a pretty, in his circle, pretty famous, I guess you would say, like he renowned. I don't know how you want to put it. He he worked in the area. His focus was criminal law, and he believed in the punishment matching the crime. And he had some ideas that he was putting forth on that, but that had nothing to do with his death. I just thought it was an interesting fun fact. So he was murdered in his driveway. He pulled into his driveway. Two hitmen pulled in behind him. This was July 18th of 2014. The hitman, one of the two hitmen, gets out of the car, goes up to his driver's side window, and shoots him in the head. He lives for about 14 hours and then passes away from his injuries. I think they kept him alive long enough so his parents could come to the hospital and say their goodbyes. So sad. And they're Canadian, so I think they had to come down from Canada. Yeah. I mean, they came down immediately, but how so sad. Anyway, so the hitmen are already serving their sentences. The trigger man, Sigfredo Garcia, is doing life without the possibility of parole. His baby mama, Catherine Magbanua, is serving life without the possibility of parole. Luis Rivera, the other hitman, is serving a federal sentence for racketeering. When he finishes that sentence, he will serve another 7 years for the murder of Dan Markel. He got a total of 19, but it's running concurrent with a 12-year sentence for the racketeering. So, all told, he's got 19 years to serve, minus game time. He'll be out to see his family. But he has very little to say about Charles Adelson because he was he was very removed from Adelson. It always went from Donna, Charles' mother, to Charles, to Catherine, to Segredo, to Lewis. So he's like, you know, 8 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Don't ask me to explain that. I'm old. Anyway, so Georgia Kappelman, Charles Adelson, he's on the stand, and she says, they, that expression, the simplest explanation is always the most likely. Isn't it true that your explanation for how this occurred is not the simplest explanation? He goes, well, it's the truth. That she was trying to trap him, and he wasn't having it. He's a smart cookie, this guy. No, it was the truth. So he didn't fall into that little trap. Uh, his and she said your defense is that you were extorted via the layaway plan, which is so weird. This is what's really weird. Like he's saying that Catherine came over the night of the murder, and her friend, she had a message from her friend for Charles that you must pay him a third of a million because they had all heard about this $1 million offer that the Adelson family was going to make to Dan Markel, the victim, to have him move down to South Florida so that his ex wife, Wendy Adelson, could move down to South Florida with the two boys and accept the job that she had been offered. And then Dan Markel could commute from South Florida back to FSU. Well, that offer never happened, but Charles Adelson likes to run his mouth, and he talked about that offer to his girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua. So now he's saying she knew about that. So the night of the murder, she came over and she said, "Okay, my friend wants a third of $1 million, or within 48 hours, or he's going to come get you," basically. And so he's, I don't have a third of a million, like in cash. No, I mean, let me open this safe for you. Here's the cash. Count it. So they counted it, $138,000. She puts it in her purse, but she doesn't leave there. She spends the night. They take some Xanax and they go to bed. The woman just extorted you and you're going to bed with her? Oh my God, Charles, buddy, you got to keep it in your pants, man, because oh Lord. So this is his story. And after a while, initially he thought, she's extorting me. And then when he said he didn't have the rest, the other part of the third of the million, she let him make payments, $3,000. He's $3,000 a month. So he was going to give her $2,000 a month in cash for her friend, but she talked him into putting her on the payroll of the Adelson Institute, which is the dental practice that he owned, and that would be another thousand a month, and then she could get her insurance for her kids, her medical insurance for her kids. So $3,000 a month, extortion via the layaway plan for the rest of your life. How weird is that? Yet, when the bump happens, the two of them are fretting. They're having these meetings and phone calls over $5,000. Just give them the $5,000. I mean, it's $5,000. You opened your safe and let her take $138,000 home. It was weird. Anyway, what am I dropping? I dropped something. So one of the things that came out was that he did, after the murder and after this extortion by his girlfriend Catherine Magbanua, he didn't leave the house. He was so upset he didn't leave the house, and he hired a camera installer to install 20 something cameras at the dental practice and at his home. Now he already had cameras at his home, but he wanted them upgraded. Well, of course the state had an answer for that. Didn't you have between January and July of 2014, you had 84 text messages between you and the camera installer? This is before the murder, talking about these cameras that you were going to have installed. This had nothing to do with the murder. Yeah. Well, this he says, well, it sped it up. I was going to do it, but then I really had to do it because I was being extorted. And then she's going through text messages with him, and she skips the ones that have the sex talk in them. So apparently that's what that whole, when his defense attorney wanted to enter the composite exhibit of text messages, and the judge said no because it was more prejudicial than probative because it was full of sex talk. Apparently Catherine and him liked to sext back and forth. So he testified on cross that he thought that Katie was protecting him. He came to, after a while he came to think, she's not spending money on anything. She's always broke. So her friend must be not sharing the money with her, and she's just protecting me. So he says we actually became closer after the extortion because she was protecting me. from her friend. But here's something that was pointed out on cross-examination. Charles Adelson offered to pay for her hotel, pay for her car repairs, use his Range Rover, help her look for a boat. She wanted to buy a boat. Paid for a cruise for her and her family to go on, or offered her a cruise. Paid for her prescriptions. Paid for her marijuana, her weed. Gave her a gift card. Gave her $300 for her son's birthday. And the prosecutor's like, why were you, this wasn't part of the extortion. Why were you doing all that for her? Well, I came to believe that she really was it. She wasn't the one extorting me. She was protecting me from the person that was extorting me. This is what he came to believe. This smart man. And then he said the TV was not code for anything. He says, I don't know, you guys latched onto that and ran with it. It was never a code for anything. She's, yeah, then how come your mom said the TV was going to cost $5,000? I don't know why she said that. Then they were talking about the Dolce Vita restaurant tape. She says, you and Katie are talking, and you're doing a lot of the talking. And he kept saying that she was doing most of the talking, but we heard the tape. He was doing most of the talking. And they talked about, if there was any evidence, if the police had any evidence, we'd be at the airport. And he said there was no need for us to go to the airport because I didn't kill him. I didn't do it. And she goes, but you're aware now that you don't have to be at the scene of the crime to be convicted of the crime. He goes, well, I know that now, He says, yes, I like to run my mouth. I do. But I didn't kill Dan Markel. And he maintained through this whole cross-examination that he was telling the truth. But there was a little bit of humor in this cross-examination. At one point, he was talking about, I don't even know how this came up, but how little kids have to brush their teeth every night. And she's like, oh, the dental joke, you know. And he's like funny. And she's like, oh, that's what I'm here for. Um, or he'd want to explain something and she'd say, okay, knock yourself out. I mean, it was just funny, the banter between the two of them. I got almost the feeling like he was enamored with her, like he just thought this was some sort of verbal game that they were playing and he was winning. And yeah. And she wanted to know, when they were at the Dolce Vita, how come this first extortion never gets mentioned? Never gets mentioned. Like, oh, this is the second time now because I've already been extorted once. Now somebody else is trying to extort me. That conversation never took place. It was never mentioned again. He says, well, she told me never to talk about it again. Okay. Apparently, after Katie gets arrested, he has some extreme behavior changes. And he said that was because he thought he would be falsely arrested. And uh, there was one question he was asked, and his answer was, well, when I get out, like he's just assuming that this is all going to blow over. He's going to get out. Like they're going to believe his story and he's going to go on his merry way. When I get out, here's what I'm wondering. This is so off topic. If he gets life in prison, like will they let him be the prison periodontist? Like I'm sure guys in prison need root canals, right? You got a guy that can do it. Let him practice dentistry in the prison. I don't know, that's just my idea. You get to practice all the dentistry you want. You can do all the root canals you want. You're just not making $850,000 a year doing it. Ah, I know, that's terrible. All right, so I will watch the closing arguments and I will bring you all of the juicy details. It will go to the jury after that, and then we will be on verdict watch. If there is a verdict that I can catch and I can fix the microphone that I'm about to break up with, um, I'll cover it live. It's Monday. So, what do I think of this cross examination? I think all in all, he held his own. He didn't cave on his story. He is sticking to his story. He didn't do it. He didn't have anything to do with it. Uh, his At one point, she said, "You never talk about this original extortion during anything that we recorded. Never on the phone, during the wiretaps, during the restaurant." He goes, "Oh, actually, yes, I did." And she says, "Really? When was that?" And he told her, gave her the date, the tape. Apparently, this is the restaurant tape where I was with my father, and he said the name of the restaurant. Yeah, I mentioned it to him. You just didn't hear it because I whispered. First of all, when did he tell his dad? We know he told his mom because she had to put Katie on the payroll. She was the bookkeeper. When did dad find out? Didn't you say that if dad found out, he would go to the police? So you whispered to, yeah, anyway, this is all stuff that I would argue in my closing. How did dad find out about this original extortion that you never mention until it's convenient? The other thing I wanted to mention is during this cross examination, his lawyer, like, he just faded into the background because his client was doing so good on the stand. He's very charming, very charming. And like I said, he had an answer for everything. So, like, this guy couldn't even get an objection in because his client just answered the. I mean, it was just weird. It was very weird. Like, I think the whole dynamic was weird between him and his client. Like, he just was cringing over the table. Like, what else is he gonna say? Like this, yeah, we've all had clients like that. That no matter what you tell, despite an abundance of caution, they're going to talk. They're going to take the stand, despite you telling them, advising them that it's not a good idea. But like I said, he really held his own. So I really spent the weekend thinking long and hard about this. I went back and I listened to the original podcast from Wondery that came out probably back in 2018, 2019, 18 or 19. And I had listened to it way back then. That's how I found out about these murders. And to see if I could pick up on anything, wiretaps that the jury didn't get to hear. And because in my mind, I'm trying to marry everything he's saying to the evidence. And you know what that is? Reasonable doubt. I have reasonable doubt now. That was his whole plan. Charles Adelson's plan was to give them a story that would get them thinking. They're going to go back and start deliberating and talking about his side of the story. That's reasonable doubt, folks. And that's what his lawyer has to argue on closing. If you are wondering if his story is true, could it be true? Could she have extorted him? One of the things Georgia Cattleman asked him, why didn't you testify against her? Why didn't you come take the stand? If you thought she wasn't part of the extortion, why didn't you come take the stand in her defense and tell the story that it was all sick Fredo? He goes, well, my lawyer advised me not to talk. By then, he was being looked at as a suspect. So, really, really interesting stuff. But the fact that I spent the entire weekend trying to think in my mind, could this be true? No. Yes? No. That's reasonable doubt, folks. Are we going to put somebody in prison with a reasonable doubt? And then I keep going back to this. These are gang members. Why would they go up and commit a murder when they could have just gone over to his house and said, "Open your safe"? Why go back and forth to Tallahassee twice to commit a murder when and extort him when they could have just said, "Katie, go get his money," or Katie, let's go over and get his money. He'll open the safe and give us. They didn't have to go up to Tallahassee, like crisscross the entire state to commit a murder. These are gang members. Head of Luis Revere is the head of the Latin King. That's the part that sticks in my head. If they really wanted to get his money, they would have just gone and got the money. They didn't need to go up and kill somebody to extort money from Charles Adelson. Mm-mm. No. They were paid or a hit. That's what happened. And I got to tell you, do I think Charles Adelson is guilty? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be so clear for the jury. I think there's going to be a lot of debate. I don't think we're going to get a quick verdict in this case. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day. Guys, have a great Monday, and I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily, or sooner if we get a verdict. I ain't gonna be that soon. Bye, everybody.